Welcome to Beauty and the Gi, the podcast about jiu-jitsu and so much more. I'm Jen Eads, a blue belt full of curiosity and questions about jiu-jitsu and so much more.
And I'm AJ Clearman, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, obsessed with Jiu-Jitsu.
I'm Jennifer Risser, a BJJ brown belt, still trying to remember how to do the warm-ups.
And we have a special guest.
My name is Sarah Chamberlain. I am going to be an instructor at the 2024 Roll Model Women's Only Grappling Camp, and I am a black belt out of Stafford, Texas, with Texas Third Coast MMA under Professor Joe Solis. And I'm sorry, Risser, but I love warm-ups, so...
Maybe that's a requirement for my black belt.
Yeah.
Never getting there.
Just getting back to loving warm-ups.
Back to?
Right.
Yeah, true. So you say you love warm-ups. Why? Because, there's some controversy over people liking warm-ups and thinking they shouldn't do warm-ups at all.
I think that warm-ups, especially for when I'm teaching, I feel like it's going to help with whatever I'm teaching at the time. So whenever we're practicing in our warm-ups, we're not just doing warm-ups to do warm-ups. I'm doing it because we're going to use that same movement. And I believe that the only way to really master a movement is by doing it over and over and over. And I know that sometimes people, they get bored and they say, oh, why do I have to do, this shrimp a million times? And it's like, well, how often do you shrimp whenever you're trying to escape or whenever you're trying to move or in guard retention? So I believe that, those movements are our fundamental movements that we're going to use in everything that we do.
I agree. I mean, just not for me.
I often don't do warm-ups just in regular classes, but we recently started a 6 a.m. class, and I've been doing the warm-ups in those because my body doesn't move at 6 a.m.
And doesn't it feel good?
Oh, yeah.
Jen is skipping, so she's doing great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just the blue belt doing the warm-ups, loving life at 6 a.m.
She really is the sunshine, just jumping around.
Truly.
We needed her energy for that. Sarah, how did you get started in jiu-jitsu?
I started actually by doing a women's self-defense seminar, actually. So my professor had one. It was around holiday time. And I think he was just, trying to get more women kind of prepared of your, and be aware of your surroundings. And so I went with one of my friends and we really enjoyed it. We ended up making a whole girls' day out of it. So we're like, yeah, we'll go beat each other up and then we'll go, get coffee and go see a movie and go to the mall. We really loved the whole vibe at the gym. We loved the professors that were teaching. They seemed like they really, what they were talking about, they really cared about, the people that were there. And so, it was getting close to the New Year's resolution time. So we said, hey, what if we start doing self-defense classes? So we actually started with Jeet Kune Do and Kali, and I had been doing that for a couple of months. And then my professor came to me and he said, you're doing really good with JKD, but what are you going to do if you get knocked to the ground? And I said, I don't know. So I started doing jiu-jitsu, but I was doing more no-gi, kind of like the self-defense no-gi aspect of jiu-jitsu. And I had been doing it for a few months. And then my professor came to me and he said, hey, I want you to try a competition. And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, listen, if you hate it, you never have to do it again, but I just want you to try it. And so I gave it a try. And my first competition that I ever had was a submission only no-gi, which is very intense. And so I did that. I fell in love with it. He knew what he was doing too. He absolutely knew what he was doing and he got me hooked. And so then of course I started, just continuing after that. And then I started competing regularly. I started the gi, which I know no gears are they're dying inside because they're like, why would you go to gi? But I used to love no gi. I feel like I'm more of a gi person myself, but I think it's also because no gi, I feel, has become more of the young man's game or young gal's game. And I'm not as young and spry as I used to be. So
I get that. Sometimes I still think I can wrestle and my next sort of day, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Right.
That wrestling, like getting down and back up, it's like, man, that's a lot of work.
I did get the
takedown. Oh, yeah.
So if you could look back at that white belt self, do you have any advice for your younger, fresher self?
Tap early and tap often. And don't try to necessarily work through injuries sometimes. Sometimes it's good to take, those rest days, or, people think rest day, they think, oh, I'm going to be sitting on the couch, eating bonbons, but it's really more than that. And I've really had to learn that recently for those that don't know me necessarily. They probably remember me from camp. I was the one sitting off on the side with my little knee brace because I had ACL surgery 2 weeks before camp. And so, yes, it was rough being able to see everybody else train and have a good time, but it's still enriching to be able to be there and be a part of it. And it also forced me to really focus on my recovery and focus on my physical therapy and my rehab. And I think because I put all of my energy that I was putting into jiu-jitsu, I put it into my rehab. I was actually cleared by my surgeon a lot earlier than most people get cleared. So, and I do, have to attribute it also to the fact that my husband is a physical therapist assistant, and that probably helped along the way as well.
We have people contact us, every year that say, hey, I can't come because I sprained my wrist or, hurt my elbow or anything, like whatever
I'm
it
pregnant.
is. Yeah. And you're one of the examples that I use for that, right? Like that you still came even in like a full knee brace. You weren't able to do anything, but you still got a lot out of camp. Would you say that, at least that's how I took it. But would you say that you still got a lot even though you couldn't participate?
Oh, for sure. Even from learning something. I come every year with my teammate and my friend Danielle, and she's actually the one that kind of put me on to Roll Model Camp. But I always, we always talk about it. We always learn something new, I feel, every single year, whether it's something from the workshops and it may even be just a small portion of whatever one of the instructors taught during the seminars. I'm adding that to my game. I'm adding that to my life. So I feel like even though I was, sidelined, I still learned so much. And I also recorded all of the sessions. So then, I could, whenever I did come back on the mat, I could sneak attack people with the moves that I learned.
I love that.
Isn't that why we go to camp?
Truly.
Of course. Learn all the cool moves.
Yeah.
We don't teach the people that didn't go to camp for weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Learn all the cool moves and then use them on people for about 6 months before you teach them to someone else.
Oh, of course. Of course. Yeah.
We knew.
Oh, yeah. Well, and what I think is nice too is that whenever we're learning something in camp, we're always saying, our teammate Ashley would really enjoy this move, or our other teammate Vanessa, she would really enjoy this. Like she would really learn something from this. And so we like to be able to kind of bring that stuff back home to our own teammates and our own girls. So it's definitely, it's definitely been enriching for us, even though, you can say, oh, well, you're not learning anything new, but you really do. You learn something new every single time we come.
And I also think that sometimes, maybe we've learned it before, but it was 5 years ago or a decade ago or so, sometimes we see something and we're like, I forgot I used to do that, that used to be part of my game. And so it's kind of a nice refresher sometimes, especially at, the higher levels of brown and black belt. You see that and you're like, oh yeah, I should put that back in my game. I liked when I did that.
Yeah. Or seminars we attended or camps we attended when we were white or blue, we'll pull out that notebook years later and be like, what was that again? I think I could do that now.
Yeah,
right.
That's very true.
Right.
So I'm hearing there's hope.
There's hope.
There's
Yes,
hope.
there is.
Okay,
As long as your
great.
notes are decent. Otherwise, it's chaos.
I think there's a lot of chaos in my notebook.
We play a game of you say the words and I'll do the moves and we'll see what happens.
It's very helpful because sometimes reading it, you're like, I don't know what I'm saying. But, like if you have two people that just like do the words you're saying, it's like, oh, that made sense. That's what I must have meant.
Yeah. I got smart and I started recording. I just clear up a bunch of space and I start recording because I've realized my notes look like a crazy person wrote them. My notes look a lot like my recipes that I write. It's all over the place. Nobody can follow them. So, and even I'm going back like saying, why did I say that? But yeah, so it makes way more sense whenever I'm going back and actually watching the videos.
Yeah. How many role model camps have you been to?
I have been to 5. My first one was in 2019. And that was right after, because I really wanted to go in 2018 because it was Danielle and then a bunch of our other girls, they all drove up. And I wasn't able to go. I had just had a baby like not long before. And I was kind of weary about being, out of state away from her. But the next year I was like, you know what? I'm going. Nothing's going to stop me. And I also have a very, very supportive husband. And so he was like, yeah, go. Like, I want you to be able to, enjoy this. I go just have a good time. Don't worry about, us. Like, we'll be fine. And so we actually drove. The first year that I came up, we drove. And I think it was like 20 hours or 21 hours driving. Now we did stop along the way. We stopped coming up and coming back, but it was a long drive. And we realized that we're a little bit more bougie than we thought. So we fly now.
I can appreciate that.
Yeah. I love that you guys have like your little Sunday night ritual and stuff like that too.
Oh, yes. Yeah. We always have our Sunday night ritual because we always come in the Thursday before and then we leave the Monday of or the Monday after camp is over. And our ritual is we always go out to eat. And usually we'll take dessert to go and then we'll come back to the hotel and we will watch a scary movie. And I make Danielle watch scary movies with me because she does not like them, but we watch them anyways.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I enjoy staying Sunday night. It's a nice time to like just decompress and, just kind of hang out with everybody. And, it's a big weekend. So you kind of like talk about all the stuff that happened. And I don't know, I enjoy staying Sunday night and kind of bonding a little further with everyone. So
plus the happy hour.
And the happy hour. Yeah. So if you haven't been to camp, for anyone that hasn't been to camp before, the hotel that we are at does a happy hour from like 5 to 7. And they used to just do drinks. Like you just got drinks during that time. Now they give you 2 drink tickets per day that you're there, I think. But because we were the last ones there on Sunday, like, there's probably 20 of us. Everybody was bringing their drink tickets. So there was no shortage for anyone that wanted drinks.
Oh, I was going to say for sure. So whenever we were there was a big group of us kind of all just hanging out together and people just kept bringing me drinks and bringing my teammate Danielle drinks. And we were having a great time. We didn't feel no pain.
So I love that, like, when Risser and I were talking about who we wanted to teach at this next camp, one of the things that was important to us was that, it was a homegrown role model, like that it's somebody that's been to several of our camps, knows our vibe, knows, exactly who we are. And so it meant a lot to be able to bring you in, to us. It meant a lot to have a role model leading the way up there. So I'm so excited that you're doing this. Do you have you don't have to tell us what you're teaching yet, but like, what's your game like? What do you enjoy doing?
One thing that a lot of people, it might be considered controversial, but I like to actually work from bad positions. I like to start in bad positions because it's not always going to be a perfect scenario. It's going to be worst case scenario sometimes. And for myself, whenever I was competing, I would cut down to the next weight class, but there would be no women. So I would either go against women that outweighed me by a good 50 to 60 pounds, or I would go against guys. And so it's just what it is. And so I had to get very comfortable with being on bottom. And I did not like being on bottom. I hated being on bottom. All of my game was always trying to stay on top, trying to pass, trying to, just submit from top. But I realized, as I was progressing, I said, I don't like to work. And people would ask me as I was, becoming a higher rank and stuff, people would ask me, oh, well, how do you escape from here? And I was like, I don't know. Like, go ask somebody else. But as I realized that I need to be able to, one, work more efficiently from the bottom because of other reasons, but I need to be comfortable there. And I think one of the biggest compliments that I got, it was right after I got my black belt. I was still like a crispy new black belt. And I went with one of my teammates. We went to go cross train, and it was with a bunch of other black belt men. And one of the biggest compliments that I got was, it was a guy that probably outweighed me by a good 40 to 50 pounds. And he said, you know what? When I was on top, he's like, you were moving so fluidly. Like I never felt like you were struggling or you were ever felt like you were in danger. Like you were just moving the whole time. Like it was like, I couldn't stay on top of you. And I was like, oh, thanks. But it's just a little pat on the back. But that was really one of the biggest compliments to me. And so, I try to carry that with, whenever I'm working with somebody who is bigger than me or smaller than me, I'm always trying to teach how to be the most efficient as possible. And that's partly because, so I have a history of, I know that you've had a history of back issues, AJ, and I found out a couple of years ago that my back issues weren't, oh, you just have an achy back. It was that you have, that I was diagnosed in 2021 with degenerative disc disease. So it really forced me to change my game. It forced me up. It forced me to be more efficient with my movement. And that's really what I've carried on for how I teach. I want to make sure that, everybody's safe, because I have, whenever I was coming up, I didn't really think about my safety. I was this, young kid coming in, and I really was a kid. I was 17 whenever I started training. And so I had, no real responsibilities. I had my whole life ahead of me. So I was like, I'm not going to tap to that arm bar. I'm not going to tap to that choke. Have I been put to sleep? Yes. I would not recommend it, but that's what I'm very detail oriented. And I know some people, they can get lost in detail, but I feel like the details that I'm showing, everybody has always said to me, oh, I appreciate that little detail. That's what helped me. That's what was missing. That's that puzzle piece that was missing. So again, I'm very detail oriented, and I need to be as efficient as possible. So I like to work from bad positions. I usually start a lot of things from bad positions and working out of them to get to a better position. And then I also really like to do series. So things that build off of one another and building off of different reactions.
I love that.
I do too. That's great.
Tell us a little bit about your teaching these days.
I did have to take a little bit of a hiatus because of my knee. So kind of stepping away from jiu-jitsu a little bit and more focusing on my rehab. But I am now, with the new year started, and I have been cleared with restrictions to come back to jiu-jitsu. So I do teach at Third Ward Jiu-Jitsu also, as well as my home gym, Texas Third Coast MMA. And both classes the classes that I'm teaching are co-ed, women-led classes. We did have women-only classes for a while, and I have nothing against women-only classes. I know that there is a time and a place for them, and I usually I know that I attend, like women's only open mats, and I've gone to women's only classes myself. But we wanted to, at Third Ward and at Texas Third Coast, we want to normalize women being at the front and being in lead positions. So teaching both sexes, it doesn't matter whether the person that is in front is male black belt or female black belt. So just normalizing it.
Tell us more about what Third Ward is.
So Third Ward is a LGBTQ friendly gym. It is a non-for-profit. They were looking for voluntary positions at the time. And so I saw the opportunity, and, I love to teach. And so reached out to Sarah Degar. She's one of the owners at Third Ward, and just love their message. Loved, they're giving back to the community. It is in a lower socioeconomic area, but I think, being able to bring jujitsu to that community, I think it's important, being able to, and making it affordable also for all of their clientele. And then I've also done like privates with them as well with some of their students. So that's been nice too. It's been a journey.
I think it's a really cool mission that Third Ward has. I know in the past, Sarah has said that they take donations because they provide gear for people. Is that something that you guys still take?
Yes. And actually, I know that I think we're set really on kids skis, but we're always looking for, especially to be, body inclusive. So looking for, larger sizes for gis. Really, belts are also another big thing. I know every time I get a new gi, I always make sure that it's got that free white belt that's in there so I can bring it to the gym. So if anybody has, and you can mail in gis, you can reach out to them, but you can reach out to them at thirdwardjujitsu.com.
Cool.
Very cool. You mentioned that you didn't come to camp in 2018 because you had just had a baby. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience of doing jujitsu and being pregnant and, how all that went?
So it didn't really go at all, unfortunately. So I was,
which is fine.
Yeah, which is fine. Which I know, like lots of people, they say, oh, I want to train as long as I can. There are some that say, you know what, I'm going to take a step back. Especially if it's considered a high risk pregnancy, which mine was considered. And so I ended up being diagnosed at I started symptoms at 6 weeks, and then I was officially diagnosed at 14 weeks with hyperemesis gravidarum. And for those that are not aware, it is morning sickness on roids. It is really rough, and it's not just morning sickness. It's all day, every day. I literally started throwing up at 6 weeks and did not stop until I gave birth. And for some, it's not that bad. And for some, it's really, really bad. So for me, I ended up having to get infusions for like 2 months, I had nurses come to my house and I had to have infusions. I was on 5 different anti-nausea medications, and I still couldn't keep anything down. So for me, I didn't really have the opportunity to still train whenever I was pregnant. And coming back was not what I had expected originally. I think coming back to it, right after I had my daughter, like 2 weeks after I had my daughter, I started having gallbladder issues. And so my original intention of coming back into jiu-jitsu, I said, okay, I'm mentally preparing myself. I'm going to get back on the mats. It's going to be like nothing changed, but a lot of things changed. And so, I think like 6 weeks after having a baby, you can get back on the mats. Well, 2 weeks in, I ended up having to get my gallbladder out. And so that was an additional, 4 to 6 weeks on top of that. So it's kind of like, okay, now it kind of threw a wrench into things, and it's a hurdle that I wasn't necessarily expecting. And for me, it was hard. I would make excuses. I would tell my husband, oh, I'm just too tired. Like, I don't want to go back in. And, I'm like, oh, I'm exhausted from dealing with the baby all day and just trying to make excuses. But my husband said to me, he said, listen, I will make myself available. Okay. You can go in and train. You can go sit in a room for an hour by yourself without having to worry about a screaming, crying baby. But I want you to know that I support you in whatever your decision is. So if you want to go use that time to go train, or even just go work out or whatever, go for a walk, whatever, it's up to you. And that's when, I realized that it was no amount of other people telling me, oh, hey, when are you going to come back in? Or, hey, you should come back in. It was, I had to get over that hurdle. And it was myself. It was my own personal hurdle that I built that I needed to break down. And I remember the first night that I came back in, and my professors, they're so great. They really are. They're so understanding of everybody, whether you're coming back from pregnancy, injuries, anything. They're so understanding. They say, take your time, go at your own pace. Like, don't feel pressured that you have to come back and give 100%. And I remember coming home the first night I came back from training and I bawled my eyes out. I cried like a big old baby. And my husband said, well, he's like, there's going to be hard days, but do you have the willpower to be able to push past that? And I think that was really eye-opening to me. And I realized that I needed to push myself. No amount of anybody else pushing me in was going to get me in the gym. I needed to come to that decision that, why did I fall in love with jiu-jitsu? Why did I start jiu-jitsu? And I needed to remember why I did, why I loved it so much. And I think that's what really helped me get back into the gym and get back into, just the rep of things. And then having, not worrying that my husband is going to burn down the house and something will happen to our kid. Like that was another fear that I had, which he is a great dad. Like, I don't know why I have like all these fears and stuff, but yeah, like everything was fine. I came back, the house wasn't burned down. My baby was happy and asleep in her crib. Like it was great. But I think I just needed to get over that hurdle myself.
Definitely. And I think that it's really great that you did, because it just shows women that, you can be off the mat. It shows everyone, but like women are the ones typically getting pregnant, right? So it shows that you can take this time off and still come back and still end up getting your black belt. The mat's always welcome you back. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Like it's your journey, and there's going to be some ebbs and flows. There's going to be times when you don't really feel like going, and you have to remind yourself the reasons of why you enjoy going, why you love jiu-jitsu, and finding that love again for it. And I think that's fantastic.
You're almost always glad you went, even if you didn't want to go.
Oh yeah, of course.
One of my favorite posts that comes up on my, on this day was like a day that I was like, I do not want to train. I'm not going to stay. I'm so tired. And then I see Risser coming in and I was like, crap, I'm going to train. And then when we get done training, she was like, I was not going to come in today. But I came in because of you. And I was like, I didn't want to train, but then you were here. And we both were so glad we did it, but neither one of us wanted to. Sarah, where can people find you? Like, do you post on Instagram or TikTok or anything like that?
I do have social media. I really don't post up anything. The most that I'll post up is maybe on like Facebook, and you'll see my family. That's about it. And my girls at the gym give me so much crap about not posting anything on Instagram, but I do have Instagram so people can reach out to me. So I told them like, it's for, networking, but not for me to post on. But I always say every year, I'm like, oh, I'm going to post something this year. And I never do. And that's been like 5 years running now. So we'll see. Maybe this year will be the year.
So where can they reach out to you on Instagram?
It's Say Roar, but it's SA_ROAR. And then you can also find me on Facebook, Sarah Chamberlain.
Excellent.
You can find me on Instagram at JRiz in the His.
I'm hanging out at Brassy Broad Jen on Instagram and TikTok. And you can also find the podcast at Beauty in the Gi Podcast on Instagram. And we love to hear from you. So message us there.
I'm AJ Clearman. Everywhere you go, we do have a camp Instagram, which is Roll Model Grappling. There's also a private Facebook group for any women that want to be in that. It's Roll Model Grappling Women's Only Camp. I don't know. It's something. It's very long like that. But if you want to be in the private group, please request and answer the questions, and we can add you to that for any other announcements for camp.
Aren't you not AJ Clearman on TikTok, though? Aren't you Roll Model?
That's true. Yeah, I'm Roll_model, I think, on TikTok. And I'm trying to get to 1,000 followers. So if you're on TikTok, please follow me. I'm at like 311 now. We've gained like 9 in the new year.
Hey, I was listening on Spotify and I said, oh, I haven't rated the Beauty in the Gi podcast, and I don't have Roll Model as a friend on TikTok. So I went and did that. I went and did both. Made sure.
Excellent.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you so much.
Now everyone follow Sarah's
That's
lead
right.
and go do the same thing.
Yes.
All right. Well, we look forward to having you out at women's camp again, of course, but having you teach and lead the way for us.
All right, friends, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you on the mat. Beauty and the Gi is a production of the Brassy Broadcasting Company.
And brought to you by Roll Model Grappling.